My sister said, "You don't deserve to attend my engagement party." I stayed silent, just smiled, then booked a trip to Hawaii. A week later, her big day collapsed and my phone blew up with calls. I'm a sommelier at the hardest reservation in the city. We're talking a 600-person wait list. James Beard-nominated chef, the kind of place where senators get turned away. My sister knew this when she called me in January. I need the biggest favor of my life. Engagement dinner, 40 guests, private dining room, Valentine's weekend. The room alone requires an $18,000 food and beverage minimum. I told her straight up, people book this room 9 months out. It's Valentine's weekend. There's a literal oil baron on the wait list. She started crying. You're my big brother. This is my one shot to impress his family. Please. I spent 3 days working on my manager. Called in every favor I'd accumulated in 5 years. Finally got it. Saturday, February 10th, 7 p.m. The exact slot a regular client had just canceled. I personally designed a tasting menu with our chef. 6 courses, wine pairings, champagne tower entrance. My sister screamed when I told her. Actual screaming. Oh my God, you're the best brother in the universe. I'm putting you at the family table. His dad is going to love you. February 3rd, exactly 1 week before the party, I was in the wine cellar doing inventory. My phone buzzed. Text from my sister. Hey, so we talked. His family is really old money, very traditional. They think having a sommelier as family is too blue-collar for the image we're building. It's better if you don't come, but thanks for the reservation. I read it 3 times, standing between the Bordeaux and Burgundy, blue-collar. I make $90K base plus commission. I'm fluent in French, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese. I've tasted wine in 14 countries, but I'm too blue-collar for their vibe. I walked upstairs to the host stand where my manager was reviewing reservations. I need to cancel the party on the 10th. Personal emergency. He looked up. That's in 7 days. You fought me for 2 weeks to get them that slot. I know. Cancel it. He studied my face and nodded. Done. The oil family's been calling twice a week. I'll move them up. They own half the natural gas in the state. I walked outside, sat in my car, and opened my laptop. One-way ticket to Maui, February 9th, $847. Ocean view room at the resort, 4 nights, booked. I didn't tell anyone. Not my parents, not my sister, nobody. February 9th, I was at the airport at 5:00 a.m. Phone off. I boarded the plane feeling lighter than I had in months. I landed in Maui at 2 p.m. local time. Checked into my room, unpacked, changed into swim trunks. I didn't turn my phone on. Not that day. Not Sunday. Monday morning, February 12th, I was having breakfast on my balcony. Macadamia pancakes, coffee, watching the waves. I finally powered on my phone. It exploded. 63 missed calls, 42 texts, 7 voicemails. The first text was from my mom, Saturday at 6:47 p.m. Where are you? Your sister needs you at the restaurant now. From my sister, 7:23 p.m. They gave away our reservation. They said you canceled. Where the hell are you? From my dad, 7:39 p.m. This is unacceptable. Call me immediately. From my sister, 8:04 p.m. We're at a Chili's. His boss is sitting at a table next to a screaming toddler. His parents left. This is your fault. The last one from my sister, sent at 11:16 p.m. 40 people watched us get rejected at the door. Everyone knows. He won't speak to me. I will never, ever forgive you for this. I put the phone down, took a sip of coffee, and watched a sea turtle surface near the shore. Then I checked the voicemails. My mom, you fix this right now. Your sister is humiliated. My dad, this is the most selfish thing you've ever done. You're an embarrassment to this family. My sister crying, you ruined the most important night of my life. You're dead to me. I stepped off the balcony and walked down to the beach barefoot, phone in my pocket. I needed the water. I needed the quiet. I waded in up to my knees and just stood there, eyes closed, letting the current move around me. When I opened them, there was a man sitting on the shore maybe 20 feet away, watching the horizon. Something about the posture made me look twice. Then he turned. It was the father, the one my sister said the whole dinner was designed to impress. The man who supposedly thought I was too blue-collar. He was alone, no shoes, looking like someone who hadn't slept. He saw me at the same moment I saw him, and for a long second neither of us moved. Then he stood up and walked toward me with something in his hand. A coffee cup, just a plain hotel coffee cup. He got about 10 feet away and stopped in the shallow water, looking at me like he was trying to figure out if I was real. You're the brother, he said. Not a question. I nodded. He didn't offer his hand, just stood there, water lapping at his ankles, and then, after a long pause, he walked past me and sat down in the sand a few feet up from the tide line. I stayed in the water for another minute, then walked over and sat down next to him. Not close, just within conversation distance. He didn't say anything for probably 2 full minutes, just stared at the ocean. Finally, he spoke. I've been here 4 days, he said. Needed distance from my son, from the situation, from all of it. I waited. You know what I do for work? He asked. No idea. Private equity. Due diligence is basically my entire job. I research everything, every investment, every partnership, every relationship my family enters. He took a sip of his coffee. 3 weeks before your sister called you about that dinner, I ran a background check on her. Standard procedure. I do it with every serious relationship my son gets into. I felt my stomach tighten. The report flagged a personal bank account. He continued. One my son had given her access to for household expenses. Joint access, but his money. Over 7 months, she'd been pulling cash out in small transfers. Always varied amounts. Always just under the threshold that triggers an automatic alert at the bank. $1,100 one week, $850 the next, $1,300 after that. He turned and looked at me for the first time. $34,000 total. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. I confronted my son privately, he said. Showed him the printout. Account number, transfer dates, exact amounts. He refused to believe it, told me I was paranoid, said she would never do that, so I backed off. I figured he'd either see it himself eventually, or he wouldn't. And honestly, I wasn't sure which would be worse. The father set his coffee cup down in the sand and rubbed his face with both hands. When he told me about the engagement dinner, I knew what it was. She wasn't trying to impress me. She was trying to get ahead of the collapse. She needed me on her side before the money thing blew up in her face. I stared at the water, my sister's voice in my head. You're the best brother in the universe. His dad is going to love you. The canceled reservation didn't end the engagement, the father said quietly. The engagement was already over. He just didn't know it yet. I had no idea about any of this, I said. I know. He picked up his coffee again. The moment my son told me you'd been uninvited via text, a week out with some garbage excuse about you being too blue-collar, I understood exactly what kind of person I was dealing with. That's not how you treat someone who just pulled off a miracle for you. That's how you discard someone who's no longer useful. We sat there in silence. A jogger passed us on the beach, earbuds in, didn't even glance our way. The waves kept coming in, steady and rhythmic, like nothing in the world had changed at all. She called the restaurant after the cancellation, you know, I said. Tried to make it sound like I'd acted erratically, like they should be concerned about my judgment. The father looked at me. Did they believe her? My manager shut her down pretty fast. Told her the reservation was canceled by the person who made it and hung up. Good. He stood up slowly, brushed the sand off his shorts and looked down at me. You're better off without that kind of poison in your life. Trust me on that. She's my sister, I said. I don't know why I said it. Maybe because sitting there on that beach, thousands of miles from home, it felt like the only thing that still mattered. Being family doesn't give someone the right to treat you like garbage, he said. I learned that the hard way. He started walking back toward the resort, then stopped and turned around. I'm flying back tomorrow, he said. My son finally looked at the account himself, named the bank, the amount, the month it started. He couldn't keep pretending anymore. What's he going to do? What he should have done 2 months ago. End it. Move on. Learn from it. The father paused. For what it's worth, you did the right thing. Then he left. I sat on that beach until the sun started setting. The sky turned pink and orange, the kind of sunset that looks fake in pictures. Didn't check my phone again. Didn't think about my family. Just watched the water and felt the weight of the last 2 weeks settle into something I could actually carry. A couple walked by holding hands, laughing about something. Normal people doing normal things. I wondered what that felt like. I flew home 2 days later, Wednesday afternoon. The voicemails from my parents had climbed to 14. My sister had sent 9 more texts. The first few were the usual rage. Then, halfway through, the tone shifted. Hey, are you okay? I've been worried. Seriously, just let me know you're alive. I know you're mad, but this is scary. Please just text me back. She was reframing, trying to position herself as the reasonable one, the concerned sister, before I got home and started talking to people. Classic move. I'd seen her do it before. In high school, when she got caught cheating on a test, she spent 2 weeks telling everyone the teacher had it out for her. By the time the disciplinary hearing happened, half the school thought she was the victim. I landed at 6 p.m., picked up my car from long-term parking, and drove straight to work. I wasn't scheduled, but I needed to be in that building. Needed the normalcy. The ritual of decanting wine and talking about oak aging and terroir with people who didn't know anything about my family drama. My manager saw me walk in and pulled me aside before I even made it to the back. You good? He asked. Yeah, your sister called here, 2 days after the cancellation. I stopped. She wanted to know who authorized it, implied you'd acted erratically, said the restaurant should be aware of your judgment. He crossed his arms. I told her the reservation was voluntarily canceled by the person who made it, and I ended the call. That was it. I nodded. Didn't trust myself to say anything. My manager, Greg, had been in the industry for 20 years. He'd seen every kind of drama imaginable. He knew when someone was trying to manipulate a situation. You need the night off? He asked. No, I'm good. He studied my face for a second, then clapped me on the shoulder. Grab your wine key. You're in section 3. I worked that night. Recommended a Chateauneuf du Pape to a couple celebrating their anniversary. Decanted a 2015 Barolo for a regular who always requested me. Smiled, talked about tannins and terroir, poured wine like nothing had happened. And for those 4 hours, I didn't think about my sister once. My parents showed up at my apartment unannounced on a Tuesday evening. I'd been home from work for maybe 20 minutes, still in my uniform shirt, shoes off, heating up leftover Thai food in the microwave. The knock was firm, 3 times. I knew that knock. That was my dad's knock. The knock that meant we need to talk and you're not going to like it. I opened the door. My dad stood in front, my mom slightly behind him. Neither of them smiled. "We need to talk," my dad said. I stepped aside and let them in. My mom immediately went to the couch like she'd been there 100 times before. She hadn't. I'd lived in this apartment for 2 years, and I could count on one hand how many times they'd visited. My dad stayed standing. He'd clearly rehearsed this. I could see it in the way he positioned himself, the way he took a breath before starting. "You owe your sister an apology," he said. Calm, measured, every word carefully chosen. "Not because anyone is saying you were entirely wrong, but because this family needs to move forward. This has gone on long enough." I walked to the kitchen table, picked up my phone, pulled up the text from February 3rd, and slid it across the table toward him. He picked it up, read it, set the phone down, looked at me. "The family needs to move forward," he said again. Not, "I'm sorry this happened to you." Not, "She shouldn't have sent that." Not, "That was cruel and you didn't deserve it." Just forward. Like the text was a scheduling conflict, a logistical problem, something that could be resolved with a handshake and an apology nobody meant. "She called me blue collar," I said quietly. "She used me to get a reservation she had no chance of getting on her own, then told me I wasn't good enough to sit at the table, a week before the event, via text. I understand you're upset. Do you?" My dad's jaw tightened, the way it always did when someone questioned him. "What do you want me to say? That she handled it badly? Fine. She handled it badly, but you disappeared. You didn't answer your phone. You left her twisting in the wind in front of 40 people. That was cruel. She uninvited me to something I made possible, and you made sure she paid for it. I took a vacation. You knew exactly what you were doing." My dad stepped closer. "You wanted her to suffer. You wanted her to be humiliated. And you got your wish. Are you happy now?" I looked at my mom. She was staring at her hands. "Mom?" She looked up. "We're not here to pick sides, honey. That's not what I asked. Did she show you the text?" "We've seen it," my dad said. And it doesn't change the fact that you handled this in the worst possible way." My dad ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I'd seen 1,000 times growing up. "Look, your sister made a mistake. She admits that, but you escalated it. You turned a private issue into a public humiliation. I canceled a reservation and took a trip to Hawaii. You sabotaged her engagement party. I removed myself from a situation where I wasn't wanted." My dad stepped forward, close enough that I could smell the coffee on his breath. "Enough. This is over. You apologize, she apologizes, and we move on. That's how family works." "Is it?" I asked. "Because from where I'm standing, it looks like family is asking me to apologize for having boundaries." My mom stood up. "Please, both of you. This isn't helping." "He's being stubborn," my dad said, not taking his eyes off me. "He's hurt," my mom said quietly. "Can't you see that?" My dad turned to look at her, and for just a second I saw something flicker across his face. Not quite understanding, but close. Then it was gone. "We're all hurt," he said. "That's what happens when family fights. But we don't let it fester. We fix it." I didn't say anything. There was nothing to say to that. Nothing that would land. They weren't here to listen. They were here to deliver a message and make sure I complied. They left 10 minutes later. My mom hugged me at the door, whispered, "Please think about it," in my ear, and followed my dad to the car. I sat at my kitchen table after the door closed and stared at the container of pad thai cooling on the counter. The microwave beeped. I'd forgotten to take the food out. I didn't move for a long time. 3 weeks passed. The engagement was publicly over. I knew because mutual friends started texting me asking what happened. I didn't tell any of them anything. Just said it didn't work out and left it at that. My sister posted nothing. No Instagram stories, no cryptic quotes about heartbreak and healing, no explanations, just radio silence. For someone who documented every meal and every outfit and every thought that crossed her mind, the silence was deafening. Then, on a Thursday afternoon while I was at work, I got a text from her. "Can we meet? Just the two of us. My choice of place. I think we need to talk." I stared at the message for a full minute before I replied. Part of me wanted to ignore it. Part of me wanted to tell her to go to hell. But there was another part, smaller but still there, that remembered what it felt like when we were kids and actually liked each other. Okay. She picked a coffee shop near her apartment. Neutral ground, I guess. I showed up at 3 p.m. on Saturday. She was already there, sitting at a corner table with an iced latte, looking put together, hair done, makeup light but deliberate, composed. I sat down across from her without getting anything to order. "Thanks for coming," she said. I nodded. She took a breath, the kind of breath people take when they've practiced what they're about to say. "I'm sorry. For the text. For how I handled everything. I felt cornered, and I lashed out, and I shouldn't have." One sentence of actual remorse. Then the pivot. His dad had been undermining me from the beginning. He never thought I was good enough. He ran background checks. He interrogated me about my job, my education, my family. I felt like I was constantly on trial, constantly trying to prove myself, and I was trying to protect myself. She looked at me like she expected me to say something, to nod, to give her permission to continue. I didn't. I know you've been talking to people, she continued, and I need you to be careful about spreading things you don't fully understand. There it was. A warning dressed as concern. The real reason for this meeting. What people? I asked. It doesn't matter. I'm just saying, there's more to this than you know, and you need to be careful about making me look like the villain when you don't have the full story. I leaned back in my chair, crossed my arms. Tell me about the account. She went completely still, not flustered, not defensive, not surprised, just still. The kind of stillness that only comes when someone has already imagined this exact moment and is deciding which version of themselves to use. I knew that stillness. I'd seen it before. When she was 12 and Mom asked her if she'd taken money from her purse. When she was 16 and Dad asked if she'd been drinking at Katie's party. When she was 20 and her college roommate asked if she'd been using her Netflix account to watch shows with her boyfriend. She'd go quiet, calculate the angles, then choose the lie that had the best chance of working. But this time, I saw something else in her face. For just 1 second, before the mask dropped into place, I saw my actual sister, the one I grew up with, the one who used to steal my fries and laugh at dumb movies with me and fall asleep on my shoulder during long car rides when we were kids. Then she opened her mouth and the doubt was gone. It was money owed to me, she said, steady, confident, the words rehearsed. I gave up career opportunities to support that relationship. I put my life on hold. I moved to be closer to him. I had nothing in writing, and I was protecting myself. $34,000. Her eyes narrowed just slightly. How do you know that number? The father knew before the engagement dinner was ever planned, I said. He ran a background check. It flagged the exact account number, the exact transfer amounts, the exact 7-month window. He had the full printout the week you were begging me to pull in favors. Her face changed. The composure cracked just enough to show what was underneath, panic. He had no right. You were stealing from his son. I was taking what I was owed, without telling him, in amounts specifically designed to avoid triggering alerts. I don't have to justify myself to you. Then why did you want to meet? She stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. People at nearby tables looked over. You were always jealous of me. You've always resented that I had something good, that someone actually wanted me and you couldn't stand it. That's what this is about. You sabotaged the reservation to humiliate me because you're small and petty and you hate seeing me happy. I stood up too, kept my voice level. The reservation was canceled because you uninvited me via text after I spent 3 days fighting for you. That's it. That's the whole story. You're pathetic, she said. Her voice was rising now. The girl at the register was actively staring. You've turned this whole thing into some personal vendetta, and you know what? It's sad. You're sad. You're a wine waiter who thinks he's better than everyone else, and you're not. You're just bitter. I walked toward the door. She followed me. Don't you walk away from me. I pushed the door open and stepped onto the sidewalk. She came out after me. I'm talking to you. I stopped, turned around, looked at her, really looked at her, and I realized I didn't recognize the person standing in front of me. Maybe I never really had. The father was in Maui because his son finally looked at the transfers himself, I said quietly. He named the bank. He named the amount. He named the month it started. She stopped moving. Her face went pale. He knew, I said, and he couldn't keep pretending anymore. I turned and walked to my car. She didn't follow me this time. When I pulled out of the parking lot, she was still standing on the sidewalk, arms crossed, staring at nothing. I drove home, made dinner, watched a movie, went to bed, and I slept better than I had in months. 3 days later, my phone rang while I was doing inventory in the wine cellar. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Hello? Hey, it's me, the son. I recognized his voice from the one time I'd met him, briefly, at a family dinner months ago, before any of this happened. He'd been polite, but distant. The kind of guy who shook your hand and asked what you did for work and forgot your answer 30 seconds later. Hey, I said, I wanted to call you. I know this is weird. We've never really talked directly, but I wanted you to know. I get it now, what actually happened. I leaned against the wine rack, a 2009 Pomerol pressed against my shoulder blade. Okay. My dad showed me the records 2 weeks before the dinner, he said. His voice was quiet, tired. The bank transfers, everything. I didn't believe it. I thought he was being paranoid, controlling, trying to ruin something good because that's what he does. He's always been that way. So I ignored it. I chose not to believe it. He paused. I could hear him breathing. And then everything after the cancellation happened, and I couldn't keep choosing that anymore. The way she reacted, the things she said about you, the way she tried to control the narrative before anyone could ask questions, it all fit. All the things I'd been ignoring suddenly made sense. I'm sorry, I said, and I meant it. Not sorry for canceling. Sorry that he'd been in a relationship with someone who could do that to him. Don't be. You didn't do anything wrong. You just stopped enabling something that was already broken. Hell, you probably did me a favor. If that reservation had gone through, if the party had been perfect, I might have kept ignoring it for another 6 months. Maybe longer. We sat in silence for a few seconds. Somewhere upstairs, I could hear the dinner service starting, the clatter of plates, the murmur of conversation, the sound of normal life continuing. I wanted you to know something else, he said. Okay. His voice got quieter. Before the engagement dinner, she told my family you were erratic, that the reservation was part of a pattern, that we shouldn't trust anything you said if things went sideways. I felt my chest tighten. What? She spent weeks building a version of you in their heads. Unstable, jealous, unreliable. She told my mom you'd always been competitive with her. Told my dad you had a history of sabotaging her relationships. None of it was true, obviously, but she planted the seeds early. So when the reservation got canceled, they already had a framework for understanding it. The erratic brother strikes again. He said it so quietly, almost like an afterthought, like he was mentioning that it might rain later. She did that to people you'd never even met, he continued. Before you'd done a single thing wrong. She built an entire narrative just in case she needed it. The line went quiet. I didn't know what to say. What do you say to that? Anyway, he said, I just thought you should know. Take care of yourself. Then he hung up. I stood in the wine cellar, phone still in my hand, staring at rows and rows of bottles, thousands of dollars worth of wine, each one carefully selected, properly stored, waiting for the right moment. And I realized something. She hadn't just uninvited me to protect herself. She'd erased me before I even had a chance to show up. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to like and subscribe to not miss the next story.